under the umbrella of Girl, Woman, Goddess, a series that Aalaap curated in the backdrop of Navaratri to really celebrate these three extremely powerful entities that we all sort of sort of inhabit in our journey as a woman, girl, woman, and goddess. I'm so excited to be in conversation with two artists I deeply admire, Vidhya Subramanian and Rama Vaidyanathan. We're just going to wait for a moment to allow more people to join, and then we will start. At this point, Vidya and Ramaji, if you want to start a watch party from your phones, you could do that. Only if you want to. Okay, looks like we have a good audience already. So I'm going to start off. Firstly, warm welcome to both of you. And thank you so much for agreeing so spontaneously to be a part of this conversation. And I think this is going to be a three-way conversation. And I'd love for, both of you to also ask each other questions. And I have a set of questions that I'm going to ask you. So I want this to be as organic and freewheeling as possible, which I'm sure it will be with the two of you. I just have a little introduction that I'm going to begin with. One of my most famous, one of my most favorite poets, illustrators is Rupi Kaur. And I read this beautiful quote by her, which says, "I am the product of all ancestors getting together and deciding that these stories need to be told." I thought it was particularly relevant to what we're going to be discussing. And, I thought that the conversation could sort of focus on how you both as artists really perceive, contextualize, respond, and articulate the feminine energy in your dance or through your dance. Personally, neither of you needs any introduction, but I'm going to just set a context in terms of how I know both of you. I've actually known Vidya for almost 9-10 years now, and we bump into each other literally every year during the Margari season. And I've always been like a big fan of, like, she's always so like beautifully turned out and stuff like that. But more importantly, I think as an artist, Vidya really is a voice of courage and conviction, constantly standing up, pushing back, refusing to give in to something that is not her value or belief system. And that is really very fascinating for me as a member of the audience, as somebody who follows her work. And I've also particularly enjoyed her series, Fridays with the Feminine, that she started during the lockdown. Warm welcome to you, Vidya.
Thank you so much, Akila. I am so looking forward to this conversation. I think right up my alley, but more importantly, thank you for inviting me. And Rama, of course, we've talked so many times before. This is merely an extension of that, I feel. So let's enjoy this.
Right. Rama Vaidyanathan, an artist I had the opportunity to connect with professionally, and who's obviously become a close friend. And literally, I think I was thinking about how last year, around this time, we were talking to each other minimum thrice a day, literally constantly. And I've really enjoyed both her company and her conversations. And now we do a lot of gupshup as well. And it's fantastic that I've made this connection with her. And I have only the Natikala conference to thank for that. And I've also loved, in the last 2 years, I've closely watched her dance, actually, because I had the opportunity to work with her. And I've also found her dance so utterly feminine, but also so unapologetically strong and impactful, always making a statement each time, forcing you to kind of stop and bloody well take notice. So, Ramaji, warm welcome to you as well. Thank you so much for always being a supporter of Aalaap. And Vidya, thanks to you too as well, always being a supporter of Aalaap. That really means a lot to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Akila.
What is also precious about this conversation is that Rama and Vidya are also great friends. And the three of us, had the unique opportunity of bringing in 2020 at a party that Ramaji had organized on December 31st, of course. However, 2020 didn't turn out the way that we wanted for it to, but hopefully there is hope, and thankfully there is Zoom. So we at least get to kind of, talk and share and converse. I thought it would be apt also to open this conversation with two excerpts that both Vidya and Ramaji had shared with me. And I'm going to first, I thought we begin with an excerpt on a woman from one of Vidya's productions, Still I Rise, which is really about a woman and her choice and conviction to stand up and really take the world head on. Suprita, can we play the excerpt from Still I Rise?
Jum 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 tatari tatay jum tari agni. Jum 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 tatari tatay jum tari agni. Kari nisa pani kari ni pa magari sa jum jum tatari tatay jum tari agni. Kari nisa pani kari ni pa magari sa jum tatari jum tari agni.
Tare thana jonu dhimi
jum tatari jum tari agni.
Tare thana jonu dhimi tare thana jonu tare thana tare.
Thank you so much. For the goddess section, we have a beautiful Devi Stuti by Rama Vaidyanathan. And I thought it's sort of a perfect ode to the power and the majesty of Devi. Suprita, can we play the Devi Stuti?
Namaste Rudra Rupini. Namakaittava Arine Namaste Mahishadi Namaste Shumbhate Shumbharuragade Sari Sari Sasa Sari Baba Baba Sari Baba Sari Baba Sari Sari Sasa Sari Baba Sari Baba Sari Baba Sari Baba Sari Baba
Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so
Akila, I want to tell you that the excerpt that you showed of Vidya's, I was sitting in the audience.
oh,
Yes, I had the good fortune of seeing that live.
okay. Oh, where was this Vidya?
It was organized by Rama. It's for Madhavi Festival in her mother's memory, right? So this was just last year. I presented Still I Rise and Dakshina presented Surpanaka. So we did it on the same evening. So yes, it was doubly special because of that. And that's Himanshu's artwork you see in the back.
Yes.
Yeah, and yes,
Yeah.
and Vidya's movements and Vidya's imagery look so beautiful against that.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about Still I Rise before as well. So great. So when I want to start off firstly by asking you both, and if we were to follow alphabetical order, Ramaji, we could start with you. And just when I say girl, woman, goddess, I just want you to talk about what is the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay, I think girl, woman, goddess, when you say that to me, I think it is the journey that a woman goes through. And when she's a girl, she's young, she's innocent, she's excited about life that is ahead of her. And then when she becomes a woman, she goes through several experiences. She actually sees reality. Some are good, some are bad, but then she obviously gets enriched with all the experiences that she gathers. And finally, I feel she becomes a goddess for herself, not
Right.
for the world, not for the world, but for herself. I think
Yeah.
that is imperative for
Yeah.
one to feel like the goddess, for one to know what you want and what you don't, to have a sense of self-worth and self-esteem, and then to be compassionate, to be fearless. I mean, all the qualities that we attribute to the goddess herself.
Right.
So I think,
Absolutely.
so I think it's a journey. It's a journey from being a girl, from being a woman, and finally being a goddess for herself in her own mind.
Yeah. And you think that one needs to go through that journey to kind of arrive at the goddess phase, right? Obviously, like,
Of course, it's absolutely essential because it is life's experiences that enrich you, and then finally it has to work organically. You can't just suddenly when you're 20 years old and say, okay, I'm a goddess.
right.
You need to grow to that position for your, again, it's always for yourself, what you perceive yourself to be.
Right. Fantastic. What about you, Vidya?
Well, when you say the words girl, woman, goddess, for me, the word balance comes to mind. So
Balance.
the idea of balance. So we're all balancing acts. Women are balancing acts, walking balancing acts, right? So balance between family and career, balance between, just mind and body, balance between chaos and order, balance between how we look inward and as well as outward, and also balance between us dancers, this idea of act and applause, so that do we dance for ourselves, do we dance for an audience, right? So as we grow between from being a girl to a woman to hopefully a goddess, is that search for the inner self to be expressed, and that balance between the inner and outer selves is a constant journey, right? And it's also, I think, just regular balance between work and fun, knowing to balance those two, right? And some of us, of course, we are dancers and teachers, so between dancing and teaching, so many acts of balance that we carry out on a daily basis. And I agree with Rama that it's a journey, right? It is a work in progress. So we are all works in
Right.
progress continuously, and in that journey, I think we are constantly striving for this balance.
Right.
That's what I
But
feel.
Vidya, when did you realize that, you have that goddess within you? Like, everybody has that kind of, everybody becomes comfortable in their skin, figures out what are the choices that they want to make, right? We all go through, like, I feel like this year has been that year for me where I feel like I've come into my own kind of thing. When did that happen for you?
If I want to look at a particular moment, I would say actually the day I turned 40, I will say. The day, yeah, pretty much, it was sort of, there you go. Yeah. So it's sort of that, things just seem to take a completely different turn. For me, each decade in my life has been for a different section of my life almost. And then when I turned 40, it became about, okay, now it's my turn. It's my time. It's my turn. And from here on, it's, of course, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be there for other people, but it's my turn now. And so that switch happened for some reason. And I think the idea of goddess, I don't know, we're all, I think, striving on a daily basis to go there, to get there. Some days are better than others. Some days you feel a strong sense of that goddess in you, and some days there is when, especially in times like this, it's difficult. It's really difficult. So again, that's there's a balance between those two as well.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ramaji, I want to ask you, what is the role of dance been for you in kind of finding the goddess within? How do you
Akila,
utilize dance in that?
every time I portray a female character, I
Right,
get empowered in some sense or the other. I mean, of course, Devi is there, Durga is there, but even strong characters. And by the way, even the pining Naika, I want to respect her too, because
right,
it's the way I contextualize her, right? So every time I show this woman deeply in love, I think she's a liberated woman because she has the freedom of an unabashed declaration of love. She is not hiding it behind a curtain,
that's
right?
true.
So she's talking about it boldly. So I attribute a sense of liberation even to that Naika.
Right,
So every time I portray these female characters, for example, when I portray Sita in the Ramanatakam Kriti, where she looks at Rama when Rama comes and tells her that, I'm off to the forest for 14 years, and guess what? You're not coming with me. So she, instead of throwing a tantrum, according to this poet,
right,
she argues like a lawyer, and without being aggressive, she gets away. Of course, we know that. And then
right.
finally she says, Iduvo aan pillaikku veeram. Is this the sign of a man? And I have this sense of empowerment when I do this,
Do that.
when I do
Yeah,
the Sanchari. So for
right,
me, it is finding the goddess every time I specifically depict female characters.
right. That's interesting. Vidya, you spoke about how different decades in your life have been defining moments or points in your life, right? I want to ask you about how and through you've been dancing for so many years, but has your relationship with a female character that you've portrayed changed as you have evolved? So how has that
Mm.
transition happened?
Tremendously, tremendously. See, for me, to take you back down memory lane, right? So when I was a teen and I was dancing, a lot of reviews that were written about my performances would say Lasya was predominant, and Lasya she embodied Lasya, so words like that. But Lasya was the word that was always used. And at that time, when I growing up as a teenager, so you are sort of conditioned by what society how society tells you to be as a girl, in many ways. And you think that this word lasya, I mean, lasya at that time, we understood it as just, the feminine, graceful aspect of dance, as simplistic as that. But it is so much more than that,
So much
so much beyond that,
more,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
Now, that at that time, it became an idea of prettiness, right? So this prettiness in dancing, prettiness in how you looked. And how society expected you to look, how society expected you to dance, or the audience expected you to dance. It became about that. But over time, I think this gradually changed to a level where I understood lasya, the word lasya, as movement that flows, as movement that flows without obstruction, as movement that is not there to dazzle but to connect, as movement that is not abrupt in any way. And this sort of also conforms with the Bargur style, which I've practiced. But beyond that, the physicality of it, right? The flow within became the idea of this lasya for me. And then at a later point, it became more about embodying feminine, strong female characters, right? Both in the Varnam, or in, if you take Ashtapadis, or if you take Draupadi, if you take any of the works that I've done. And I'll talk about those a little later, perhaps.
Sure.
But this idea of lasya grew in my mind from when I was a girl to now, right? And it still continues to evolve, that idea of lasya. And that, I feel,
Right.
is the way the female has changed over time with my dancing.
Right. That's interesting. Ramaji, I want to ask you, Vidya used this word pretty, right? I want to, she just used, we often like, and I had my introduction post when I introduced the two of you, I talked about how often we just label women as pretty, but women are really much more than that. There is so many more layers, and we also become pretty because of those many, many layers, right? It's not just about external appearance. I want to ask you to think about a woman character that you have portrayed and whom you've looked through as not just pretty, who's pretty because of so many other layers that make her pretty, like resilience and strength. And do you want to share an example of a woman character like that you've kind of?
Yes, a woman character I'm deeply in love with, and that is Lal Ded,
Oh
this
yeah,
14th century Kashmiri uh, tantric saint poetess. And
right,
she was a maverick, and she was also called Laleshwari.
right,
And again, I have grown with her and I've slowly understood her strengths. And as I portray her, and we
right.
speak about feminine energy,
Yeah,
and how her dance was very beautiful, or what she said was very beautiful. We we should mean that what she stands for is beautiful, what she represents
yeah,
is beautiful, not
right,
it's not all about just what she looks. So while I was portraying her character, and she was a woman who was nude and she wouldn't wear any clothes, she had long hair wrapped around herself, and yes, and then she would utter these Kashmiri vaks, which were her uh, declaration of love for Shiva in the formless state, because she
oh wow,
believed in the tantric form of worship.
right,
And that is when I understood, Akila, what is feminine energy.
yeah,
Because I understood feminine energy is not only about the female. I feel that each one of us, we have a sum total of male and female energies, like the yin and the yang.
yeah,
And when we say feminine energy, it is the astuteness and the acumen and the intelligence and the fortitude with which the woman makes the balance, the optimum balance of female and male energy within herself. And that which comes out and that which manifests is what I term as feminine energy. So, feminine energy is not female energy. It is
okay,
the strength of the woman when she creates that balance for herself between the male and the female energies. Because because Lal Ded was a strong, dynamic woman who would do these, even in the dance, even in when I was depicting her, it was not soft movements, it was, strong, emphatic movements.
right,
But does that mean that this is male energy, or this is female energy? So then I understood what is the balance. Vidya spoke about balance. That's exactly what I went through, this balance of both the energies. and
Right.
how we create that balance. And by the way, this optimum balance of male and female energy that we synergize and combine to manifest within ourselves as the feminine energy needs to be redefined, revisited, recreated every time for every situation.
Right.
So it's a different balance.
Or
It's a
yeah.
different balance of male and female when I do Radha. It's a different balance of male and female when I do Shiva Tandava. It's a different balance of male and female when I do Lal Death. So it
Right.
is this optimum balance that we aim for and we work towards and we accomplish. I think
Right.
that is what is feminine energy, because
That's,
it comes out of the female body. That's
yeah.
all. But
Yeah.
the energy per se, I think, is genderless.
Okay, that's interesting. And I want to ask you, if it was like, a conversation in a literary festival, there would be like three adjectives that you would use to, describe Lalden. But I'm going to ask you if there's one stance or one, like one, uh, I'm not using a jargon, Bharatanatyam, one pose in which you would sort of, when you think of her from your dance, this one pose or a posture that you kind of like associate with her, what would that be?
It would be something that speaks of being absolutely fearless.
Oh,
That's it.
like abandon.
Abandon, absolutely. Yes.
Right.
Complete belief in oneself and one's worth, and you know, and absolutely surrendering to love,
Yeah. Yeah.
surrendering to a higher energy.
Absolutely. So that is the ultimate goddess state, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vidya, I want to ask you about what is your response to feminine energy, and from the characters that you have, worked on. I've been watching your Fridays with the feminine as well. What is that one female character? Would you agree with Ramaji about the feminine energy? I thought that was a very interesting point. Would you like to add on that, Vidya?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So to me, I think the way I look at feminine energy is sort of this void, this intuition, this sort of the idea of creativity, intuition, flow. These are words that come to mind when I think of feminine energy. And there is a desire to be filled in this energy, and there is chaos in this energy. And
Yeah.
then if you think of masculine energy, I would use words like planned action, or I would use words like inertia, or I would use words like, there is a sense of solid, solidity in that situation. But like Rama said, right? So do these characteristics exist only in women or men? No, we find all of these traits in what are physically considered to be women and men. Uh, uh, so in that sense, we are definitely, I agree, a blend of these energies, right? So the feminine energy and the masculine energy. And gender fluidity is something that I also like to talk about, because while they exist in each of us, these dual energies that exist in each of us, how do we harness them, and how do we find that balance again between those energies? And and that is a changing balance as well in different compositions, in different dance pieces, different naikas that I approach, just like Rama said. So if I'm, for example, if I'm looking at a varnam and I am embodying this naika, what is that emotion? The primary emotion for that naika is yearning. So she's in a constant state of yearning. And aren't we all in a state of yearning now and forever? We're always yearning for the other, for something beyond us. And this yearning is, I feel, truly represented through our varnams, which I just enjoy performing and dancing. So this Naika in the Varnam doesn't, sometimes she gets a bad deal because she gets looked at as this pining heroine who is always only looking at the man for his arrival. And, it's beyond that. It is so much beyond that. It is this gender fluidity that exists within each of us that is craving and yearning for something beyond us, and it is expressed through these gorgeous compositions, which are the Varnams. And similarly, if I take Radha, if I take Draupadi, any of these, there is always a seamless blend, and that blend also changes from performance to performance. Each time you do the same piece, doesn't mean those energies stay in the same balance or same ratio, right? So there is a fluidity in that state of balance as well. So every time I perform a Radha, or every time I perform a Draupadi or a Naika in a Varnam, that flow is going to change for me. And yeah, so that strength that I derive from that gender fluidity sort of feeds back into that amalgam as well.
Right. Ramaji, you spoke about this genderless, right? So, have there been occasions where you've actually portrayed a male character, but you've infused it with male character as in a male identity, or and you've infused it with feminine energy? As I mean, I'm just trying to like wonder, does that happen?
Hmm. I feel basically dance should transcend gender in any case. So it is basically the soul that speaks and expresses, and the body is just the mere medium,
Instrument.
just the mere conduit. Yeah. So, I mean, I would like to portray Krishna or Shiva as much as I would like a male dancer to portray Radha. Because I think separate and special from other arts like theater and cinema, because we have this capacity of getting into a parallel reality, of getting into a world of magic and mysticism, of getting into these characters which transcend the body. So I think whether it is the male body or the female body or even the transgender body, so to speak, I feel dance has to transcend it as it transcends other barriers of culture and religion and nationality and language. I think this is another gender we need to transcend. So if I am
Right.
portraying a male character or a female character, it is that balance that I look for of both the energies,
Correct.
amalgaming both the energies together into that character. Obviously, me
Yeah.
doing a Shiva Tandavam is going to be different from a male dancer doing a Shiva Tandavam, right?
Of
And
course.
vice versa, me doing Radha and a male dancer doing Radha. But none is less than the other, I feel, because each has come invested in a specific balance of energies.
Right.
And that is what is, infused into the dance.
Right. And
So,
I think that's also the thing about possibilities, right? About how each one brings their own dimension to the same character, infuses it with their own individual energy, right?
Mm.
yes,
Um,
yes.
You know, I was just thinking what came to mind, Rama, is Leela Hava, which you have danced
Ah,
to the concept of Leela Hava, and I just danced
yeah,
in your
right,
last year's NKC, and that is what we
oh,
addressed, right? So the
right.
idea of gender fluidity, the idea of female embodying male, male embodying female, and so beautifully expressed through that concept of Leela Hava, where Krishna and Radha are exchanging
Exchanging.
everything,
Hmm.
everything, right? So I feel we get too stuck in these ways of looking at people, ways of looking at human beings, and as a result judging, and you, how you're supposed to walk, talk, dance. And we need to do away with that, because each person, each dancer, each individual is a true expression of themselves if they've had the courage to transcend those personal barriers and reach that true inner self, like like Maya Angelou, I think, once quoted about a woman being a river that flows, and she reaches her destination eventually when truly, I'm totally paraphrasing, but reaches the destination truly being herself, right? So that herself, she's referring to the woman here, but that it applies to each and every one of us. So we've reached a certain destination after this journey, and that destination is going forward, right? Continuing on. So every place that you are in time is sort of sum total of everything you've been through, all your experiences so far. And when you are bearing that on stage, when you are allowing that to be seen by others, that's a beautiful thing. That's such a beautiful gift you're giving for people to be able to witness, right? So I think we have to enjoy and celebrate what that is,
Yeah,
whatever
absolutely.
that is, each human being.
Right. I want to ask you, Ramaji, that have you ever been in a situation where, there's a particular character that you have not empathized with or not identified with, even when you were a young dancer? Because I suppose when you've been in the, you're a dancer of certain acclaim and repute, you can actually kind of recontextualize, like a word that you beautifully used yesterday. But when you were younger and you did not empathize, does it sort of really affect the way you actually bring that character? I mean, does it affect the way you dance?
Akila, that also is a journey,
Right.
because there is a lot of poetry that we portray in Bharatanatyam that is connected to
Right.
the Bharatanatyam ethos, right?
Right.
All poetry is not just about divine love and yearning for the supreme. There's also
Right.
poetry about regular man woman love triangle
Got it.
and
Yeah.
extramarital affairs and all of that. And a lot of the poetry is misogynistic and definitely meant for the male gaze, written for the
Ah,
male gaze. And it involves body shaming and women throwing derogatory remarks at each other, women being subservient to patriarchy and all of that. That a lot of that poetry exists.
yeah.
But the fact is that they are very, very beautiful poetry. They're poetically, they're absolutely par excellence, musically too. And they're also highly explorative of human emotions. And they form an indelible part of the of Bharatanatyam ethos and pedagogy.
Right.
So every dancer has to go through those poetry, that journey of exploring that kind of poetry, because it helps in her grasp over the idiom. It helps her to become a holistic, accomplished dancer and understand what is the evocative and emotive power of the dance form.
Right.
So one does go through it,
Yeah.
but
Right.
then you do come to a point when you, again, like I say, recontextualize those characters
Right.
and make them relevant for what you want. Like, for example, I say, I liberate my pining Naika.
Right.
So we need to again make the balance between representing the dance form in its traditional ethos character, in its traditional avatar, and balance it with what I think, what is my opinion, and what is my statement in what I need to speak in a specific character or in a specific dance. So even Vidya, remember when we did the Mohamagin in Varnam Sancharis, when you first danced it and when I first danced it, our Sancharis were so different, so
Yeah.
very, very different. And then as we understand the idiom, and then as we have to go through those Sancharis,
Yeah.
we have to go through that. It's part of the system, it's part of the pedagogy, it's part of the journey. And it's only later on that you um, customize the Naika for yourself. And you pick and choose the poetry that you want to express. That is you. That is what you feel is, and what you have to come from a point of conviction
Yeah.
when you do that. So the journey is important. So I have gone through all that,
Right.
and now again I'm at a point where I pick and choose what I feel like doing, and sometimes I do show the Naika who is pining for the errant hero who's apparently having a colorful life. But then I but then recontextualize it in a very, very different manner. I give her a lot of strength. I firmly believe that we women in the arts, we will get respect only if we respect the women we portray,
Yeah, absolutely.
whoever they are, whatever they are.
Yeah,
We have to respect the women we portray. And it's only then that we can get that respectability for women.
right. Absolutely. Beautifully said. Vidya, I want to ask you about your response to the male gaze. That's one. But I also want to ask you about how, like, this always, like, I don't know, I have, as a member of the audience and not a very, maybe not the most informed audience, always found a certain conviction in your dance. Like, always, it's sort of, there's a certain, um, uh, I know that it's a dangerous word to use, but there's a feminist sort of take. Pardon me, but I feel like that.
Not a
So
bad
can
word.
you respond to that, Vidya?
Uh, so Akila, here's the thing, right? So for me, these compositions, I feel we can, as dancers, we can navigate everything that is available for us to explore, right?
Right.
So we are in embodying a lot of these compositions that were written centuries ago or thousands of years ago. There is a sense of authenticity that you find by, I think, balancing by finding that amalgam between you and the naika. So what does that mean? So the naika was someone from 1,000 years ago. uh, the way she was written in some of this poetry. Let's take Kshetraya, or let's take Sarangapani, or any of those, Jayadeva, any of them, right? So, but that doesn't mean to me that she doesn't exist in our world today.
Yeah.
She is still very present, I feel. There are shades of her that are available for us to access everywhere around us. All we have to do is look. And there is this idea of, I mean, as you know, when you go into the theater world, for example, once acted as Noor, the Empress of Mughals, in a play.
Right.
And
Right.
what do I have to access that heroine, right? Who am I?
Agreed.
I was brought up in Chennai. I am totally no connection to Noor, the Empress of Mughals. I'm not an empress. I'm not a Noor. But how do you access that, right? You find the you in Noor, and you try and find the Noor in you. And this is something I apply to compositions that I in Bharatanatyam, in what I approach, right? So if I'm taking a Radha in Sakhi, or if I'm taking a Chudare, or if I'm taking a Yera Rara, or Smarasandurang, any of these traditional compositions, I feel, yes, definitely, I choose what I want to dance to, and most of the time those are compositions where the naika is directly addressing rather than going through a sakhi or anyone. I like to do away with the sakhi right at the beginning, if the sakhi exists in the composition, and talk directly to that man or that energy if it's a varnam. So when you choose those compositions, there is she obviously is strong and uppermost in the poet's mind, but
Correct.
but then how can I also not be there? I am there. So it's there is this dual personality going on within each composition, but where they come together and where they go apart is something that you have to determine with experience, of course, on working on any of these pieces. So I feel that these texts are just what they are. They are beautiful, phenomenally written texts from another time, which will become lost if we don't perform them. They are,
Yeah.
and what of those poets? What of their work? And what beyond that? What of the dancers before us, the teachers before us, who have done immense work in all of this extensive literature we've got going, right? So that has to be embodied. And when we're talking about issues that that plague the world today, there are so many other ways we can approach that through our art. The traditional padams and javalis are not necessarily the space to do that. I mean, I'm very comfortable doing an ashtapadi or a padam or a javali, and the comfort comes from finding the me in that Naika, and accessing that and being able to um, blend the two, and if I am doing an ashtapadi, I see Krishna there. I'm looking at Krishna, and how can I not be in love with that, right? And or if I am looking at if I'm doing, let's say, even Yerarara or Yarka Ilumbaima or a Chudere, I may be gossiping, but I am, there is within me that patra, that actor that is transposing myself into that Naika, right? So then I'm also very comfortable working on, and actually, I feel that there is a need for all dancers to explore pieces like Still I Rise, or pieces that look beyond the margam and look at how Bharatanatyam is used as a medium to explore these tremendously rich characters we've got that can teach us lessons that are relevant to today. So I feel I can navigate both and be very comfortable in both. And for that, of course, I have to shed my skin. I have to get out of myself. I have to um, get beyond myself as well, and look at it as without ego, without a sense of I am the dancer doing these pieces. That is not important here. So when I look at it from that and get out of my own skin, then I'm able to present them with a sense of what you called a sense of conviction, and a sense of, uh, this is me. I can own them because
And
I found that blend between her and me.
yeah.
Vidya, also taking from what you said, it's also when we perform these compositions, it's also representing the dance form as a true art form,
Yeah.
as a true art form. It's got nothing to do with religion or history or anything. It's just to do with art, with a sense, with a stylized, very very developed sense of poetry and language that we express it through. So it's also so somewhere it is also the art form that has to be highlighted, Akhila.
Yeah.
And so again, we, like Vidya said, we create we create these spaces where we represent the art form, and
Right.
then we also have another space where we represent ourselves
Selves.
as today's dancer in the
Yeah.
21st century. Who are we? What are we representing? What is society around us?
Right.
And what goes inside my mind? So we have a space for that too,
Right.
creating that balance again. I think this whole talk is about balance.
Yeah. Seriously. At this point, seriously, and how girls, women, and goddesses are constantly negotiating, right? We're just
Yeah.
like utterly balancing act. At this point, I'm just going to take a little detour, and there's a really interesting question from Maven. I'm just going to ask you both that question. And he says, the two of you are such deep artists, deep, complex thinkers. How do you ensure that what you are thinking from a conceptual perspective articulates successfully in your physicality and performance so that the thought manages to land with audiences?
Ah,
Both of you
okay.
could.
Okay.
Yeah, good
Can I
question.
take that? All
Please,
Please.
yeah.
right. Okay. Maven, fantastic question. Um, I think the most important point here is intentionality. What is my intent before I I have a thought, and even before I execute it or translate it into dance, I need to know what my intention is. What do I intend to do with this production or with this
Right,
piece? And
right,
what is the message I want to send across, or what do I want to represent, or what do I want to say? So I think I need to have a lot of clarity in my thought of what I want to do and why. So the intent and the intentionality is prime here for me. So sometimes I have sleepless nights over the intent. I have sleepless nights about, I have a fantastic thought. I have, I'm thinking that it's going to be a fantastic piece. There's going to be music. There's going to be beautiful visual imagery. But what's the intent? Why? Why am I doing it? So I think that is the key point of having clarity of thought on that. And I think once you have that, everything falls in place.
Mm.
Right.
So
Vidya?
hey Maven, thank you for asking the question. I think it's to me communication is sort of the word that comes to mind. So when I say communication, it's not just about performance or communicating with an audience or getting that thought across to the audience. It's about communicating with self as well. So we are constantly communicating, right? In there is an inner dialogue going on, there is an outer dialogue going on, and when there is a thought that comes to mind, an idea, let's say, it may sound brilliant in the head, but it doesn't have to always translate into movement that is engaging or that convinces you or the audience, right? So, and that is such a process of trial and error. But when I'm sitting in my studio and when I'm working on something, right, and that thought, the thoughts of course occur whenever they choose. They don't have a timetable or a schedule, so they happen at the oddest of times. But then you take that thought and you hopefully retain it, and you negotiate it in your time in the studio, right? You negotiate that with that thought and understand how it sits in your body. And for this, so much trial and error is required. And you move. Sometimes I just move without any music, and I'm thinking of this thought, and I let the body just sort of move to this thought and see what happens, see what manifests in the body. And if it is something that organically communicates to me, then I'm convinced, then I'm happy with it. Then I feel like I can move on to the next step with that movement. And then the connections that happen, right? The arc of any composition, the transitions that happen, are they communicating with each other? Are the transitions communicating? And then, of course, the communication between you and the audience, which is we are all performers, unapologetically so. And so that's where that space of communication truly gets expressed, because you feel that energy when there are some people who get it. And and by get it, I don't mean understand it, I mean experience it, I mean feel it. And so when that communication is happening from an emotional space, I feel, rather than a cerebral space, the idea exists here, but what we do with it exists somewhere else, all over. And so that connection between mind and body, right? Again, I spoke about balance in the beginning of that as well. So connection between those two, and the conviction you find through repeated analysis of that idea, so that you can do away with that thought. So the idea does not become, the idea is not visible anymore. The idea is not something that people see. It is, they feel what you're trying to communicate, is what I'd like to say. Yeah.
I want to ask you both at this point that you're both mothers of daughters. And I want to ask you that have there been occasions where, of course, Ramaji, in your case, Dakshina is also a dancer. But I want to ask you about, have you had conversations with your daughters on what you're trying to portray and the subjects that you're working with? And have there been occasions where they have either fueled your thought process, because they're millennials growing up in a completely different world, and so they probably bring to the table a different perspective. So I want to ask you both about just dinner table conversations that you have with your daughters, and how do they in some way influence or inspire your dance? Vidya,
Ah,
Ramaji? Yeah.
okay, so with Dakshina and Sannidhi, both are into the arts. Dakshina
Right.
dances and Sannidhi plays the mridangam. Yes, we do have a lot of conversations about female characters, and again about why we dance, because I constantly prod them to think about why they dance. Is dance only about interpreting poetry, translating poetry, or is it also about inspiring? Is it about searching for new uncharted spaces? Or
Right.
is it about elevating the human consciousness? Or is it about making a difference? Is it about reaching out? Is it about
Right.
touching people? So there's so much more to dance than just compositions and poetry, you know, and geometric movements.
Right.
So it is this that I try to inculcate within them, and
Yeah.
about, and you know, and being having two daughters, just as Vidya has, it's important to instill, Vidya, you'll agree, that sense of fearlessness and absolute confidence and self worth. And one thing I tell you, Akila, what I've taught them, especially since both of them are artists, I've taught them not to compete with the world, but to compete with yourself.
Yeah.
I think that is imperative, because that is what will bring a sense of contentment and equanimity, which artists really, we all need to have that, because otherwise that discontentment will reflect in my dance. So it's very, very important to compete with yourself, because every artist is different, comes with a different set of energies and set, you know, different things, different merits and demerits. So these are the things we speak about, and they have some special characters that I portray. Like, for example, Dakshina loves the Radha I portray
Okay.
in in Sanchadradhara. She loves that Radha I portray. Sanidhi loves the Lal Ded, because she
Oh,
gets to play the tambourine when I do
okay.
that. So
Nice.
so I think it is important of these qualities that we instill in our daughters.
Right. Absolutely. Vidya,
Yeah, so
your take.
my two are walking lessons for me on a daily basis. Sometimes I wonder, did I make these two? Did I, sort of mold these two? I'm in a blended family, and it's we are a very complex four of us, right? So each of us completely different human beings, and these two strong women that stand before me today are, I feel, a sum total of all of those dinner table conversations, right? So we talk about, in our house, we talk about politics, we talk about veganism, we talk about everything, you name it, whatever's out there, somebody will share an article, New York Times, whatever. And so the conversations are fodder always for
Right.
not necessarily just for dance, right? But it is fodder for creating or molding us into human beings that we are. And I've taught them to, again, be sort of definitely find pathways that come from a place of inner desire rather than to please the world. But and beyond that, I've also taught them to feel empathy, to feel a sense of responsibility in this world, and they sort of embody that even today as adults now, especially more so. And so this I think blend between that fierceness and that sense of purpose, combined with a sense of empathy and being able to um, relate to the world, being able to find ways we can give back, find ways we can do better in the world today. So it's sort of a blend of the two, and I think they are my biggest cheerleaders mostly. And so they are both, they both did learn dance. My younger one did her arangetram, but they didn't take it up seriously beyond that yet. Who knows? But they are my biggest cheerleaders. When it's much more difficult for me being in the US. I mean, navigating the going back and forth, and when they were in high school, I started this process of
Yeah.
staying
Spreading some.
over extended periods of time in India. But from the beginning, even though there was societal pressure, there was people questioning, how could you leave your daughters and go like this, or there were all kinds of questions, but they were always, Ma, you got to do this. This is what makes you happy. Go do it. And that was enough for me. That was enough. So, and there, even today, this morning also I was talking to my daughter. There is that sense of comradeship, right? Almost in that in that femininity. And I feel sorry for my husband sometimes.
Yeah.
Just too much of that.
I was also thinking about what you said, Vidya, about, for me personally, when I think of a woman, and I think two important values for a woman for me are respect and freedom. And I want to
Mm.
ask you both at this point, quickly, like respond to how, in a certain way, would you think that, we use the word privilege, it's like the most like,
Yeah.
talked about word on social media, but I want to talk about how like the privilege to dance in itself and the privilege that dance has given you as the privilege of respect and the privilege of freedom, right? By virtue of being able to use that instrument to kind of really make powerful statements, move people and stuff. What would you think of that privilege itself as women, right? To have the privilege to dance and to move. Um,
I think it's a sense of empowerment, and that itself gets you the freedom, the liberation, and the respect. And that's
right,
exactly what I feel when I dance. I feel empowered. I feel strong.
right,
I feel that I can make a difference
right,
through my dance.
right.
So yes, being a dancer has definitely given a sense of empowerment, which has led to respect and you know when I was much younger, Akila, I would suppose get off at the airport and or maybe at the station. The organizer would come to receive me and my musicians, and there have been cases when the organizer will say namaste, aye. I mean, usually North India specifically. So, and he wouldn't really give me a second look. And in the sense, like,
Yeah,
I mean, it's not that he would be rude, but he would be like, okay, this is a dancer. She's come to perform, and my job is to, receive her and put her into check her into the hotel, and that. So many times when this has happened, when the organizer comes, so the musicians will say, "All right, tonight we will see what will be your reaction after the performance is over." So, and after the performance is over, his complete, the word is hulia in Hindi, his whole hulia will change, and he will like, Rama ji and all that, okay? And at that time, I feel that it is not me, it is what I represent. It is dance.
interview.
Yes, it is this dance that has given me this status, this power, this respect. And so when I got off the station, I was just this woman. But then after the performance, he saw me in a completely different reality. I mean, he saw me in a completely different form. And and then and then I speak to him and I tell him, I give him a dose. Yeah, I've always given him a dose. Okay. So
Good
please
for you.
make sure yeah, that you have utmost respect for the female artist. And now,
Yeah,
I mean, he'll be absolutely apologetic. And I'm like, okay, the power of dance. That's what it is. Yes.
yeah. So, Vidya,
For
do
me,
you
I
think?
think,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, no, for me, definitely it's a privilege. And I don't really know how else to negotiate the world. I think the world is too chaotic. It's too messy. And I feel dance is the only way I can negotiate it and find sanity within myself. And that sense of stillness, that sense of purpose, that sense of, you know, peace is a very cliched word, but it's the idea of bringing all that chaos to order
right,
happens through dance. And
right,
even on a the worst day, I mean, if there is something horrible happening, and all I have to do is dance for a few minutes, right? And that sense of
Mm.
something that calm that pervades the body, the mind, the everything, right, is an experience that all dancers will relate to. So if I don't do that, God, I will be a very difficult person to deal with in this world. And I feel, I feel that wish that everybody would learn an art form. They don't have to perform it. They don't have to, go out there and be, showcasers of it. But learning an art form is something that changes you as a person, changes
Yeah.
you tremendously, and who you are is something that is a sum total of who I am is a sum total of that,
Right.
and that forms like a huge, triangle in the pie chart. And I think, therefore, it's a privilege, definitely a privilege, and I wish it would become more a part of our education system and become, a part of everyday learning for every child, just like math or science or any of that stuff.
Right. Vidya, at this point, I want to tell you a secret that Ramaji has promised to teach me Abhinaya.
All right.
Yes.
That's
Can you
our
imagine what a riot the classes would be, Vidya?
No. I'm going to be there. I'll be there
Oh my
watching.
God. You can also be my other guru, please. Yeah, I want to ask you. You also work with so many students, young women, right? Who are, training to become dancers. What do you tell them? Like, how would you, like Ramaji used the word recontextualize? Do you sometimes tell them to kind of look at a piece through a? They're probably doing that, but do you kind of urge them to also unpeel the layers, so to speak?
Definitely. So this same negotiation that I do with each Naika that I portray, I encourage them, I demand it of them, the same negotiation. So every time you're learning a piece from me, you're not learning just how to do it. I mean, this is not, okay, I'm teaching you and you do the piece exactly as I've taught it to you, and that's the choreography and that's what it is. No, you are an individual. You are a person who has come with your own history, with your own sense of being in this universe, and your experiences, your ancestry. So much of it plays into who you are. So bring all that to the table. The hand may be, I may use a katakamuka or a pataka to say go and, bring him or whatever. But where is that you in that naika, right? So, and it's something that I'm constantly talking to them about, finding through every class, every time I teach, and especially in Abhinaya piece, it's so much beyond, like Rama said, right? So much beyond Rita, right? So when we are talking about these women, where is that blend again? Where is she in you? What experience today did you have that could perhaps not necessarily obviously and translate into movement, but where you find a source for that particular abhinaya or a particular expression. Or it could have happened several days ago. Recently, I was, I've been teaching actually juxtaposing Chudare and Yarika Hilumbhayama. It's sort of this opposites, right? And so we talked about why one side of it is you are playing the woman who is gossiping, and the other side you're playing the woman who's saying, I don't care about all you gossipers, right? So you're playing the other person. So it was such an interesting exercise to sort of look at it from both sides. And so they have to go to their own recesses of experience some of them found it very hard, and it became a lesson in who they were. They learn about themselves as well as a result, because some of them wondered, why am I having trouble being in the Yarika? Many of them found it harder to embody the strong woman who says, I don't care about society. They found it harder. It was easier because we're told by society always that a woman is a certain way or acts a certain way. And so it's much more difficult to get out of, which is what I meant by get out of your skin, get out of your own way, basically. And that is also part of the negotiation. So it's on a regular basis. Classes are
right.
Negotiation sessions.
Yeah. Ramaji, I was thinking about how, like Vidya talked about these two, pieces. In a certain way, we are like that, right? Like, but in a certain way, we love to gossip. At least I do. I love to gossip, but I also really don't care about, like we are in some way, in many ways, actually a, a bundle of contradictions. And like, I think that's what makes us all, I think, who we are, right? Like, uh, I'm trying to understand like how you kind of like bring in these different kind of dimensions that make a woman, right? And infuse that into the dance. And the process of actually teaching, and you have a lot of male students as well, So how do you kind of like, help them understand, appreciate, and infuse this feminine energy in their dance?
So the thing is, I more than teaching them, I would like to say that I want to inspire them. I want to inspire them to see things that they wouldn't have seen otherwise. I feel like I feel that I should hold their hand and lead them into a magical world of poetry, of imagery, of metaphors, of allegories. I want to lead them into that world and then leave them there.
Oh, wow. Figure it
Okay,
out.
what? Yes, figure it out, negotiate it. What do you want? What do you like? What do you want to take? What do you want to, put together? So that's the way I want to teach them, because I want them to understand what is good for them
Right.
and what they believe in. And every padam class or a javli class or a varnam class becomes like one big lecture in either women empowerment or men behaving towards women, and about life lessons and about so many things. So it's about lot of stories and lot of imageries, and so I like to lead them into this world rather than
Right.
tell them that this is it, this is it, this is it. That is self study, that is something that they have to do themselves.
Right.
I
Right.
also inspire them to do a lot of self study, because I think self study is essential.
Right.
It's only then that you actually internalize the dance, when you and your dance, it's just your love affair with your dance. So
Absolutely.
basically, there is this lover called dance, and I get all my students to love this person, this lover, this
Right.
this dance. So
Yeah.
I get them to fall in love with this person, and that is how I develop the relationship between them and the dance. And male students, now I'm a female and I'm teaching them, but I've never felt it like that. Like I said, it's always been a balance of two energies.
Right. Right.
And then sometimes, Dakshina says, I'm jealous of these male dancers, mama, because they're so strong. And, they're able to jump and they're able to do all of that so
Right.
nicely. And then I keep telling her that, that yes, that's a different energy.
Yeah.
That's a different cocktail they have. You have a different cocktail. So
Absolutely.
let's make the optimum use of the balance that you can create.
Right. Clearly, this conversation is so much about balance, really, right? Negotiating. There's one interesting question from Kirtana Ravi, and her question is: do you feel empowered or disempowered being a female artist in this milieu? How has it been for you balancing home and a demanding career with so much travel and time away from family? And how did you both negotiate these spaces?
Ah, it's actually a, thank you,
Yeah, we need
Keertana,
to have
for
another
that.
conversation on this.
Yeah, I'm just trying to how do we even, where do we start and where do we go? Thanks, Keertana, first of all. It, that's been one of the most challenging things to do, right? Things to negotiate in my life for me. It's something, I mean, I came to the US when I was 21, actually. When I didn't want to come to the US, I ended up here, but it just changed who I was and how I my relationship with my dance, all of it, right? So now along the way, we obviously, this love for dance, it never goes away, and it's always this yearning and this pulling, this drive that you want to do it, right? And you keep going back to it, and you have children, you have families, you have to think of what to make for lunch, you have to think of whether the house is clean, all of those things, right? um, but somewhere in that process, I think you make your family your sort of army men, if you will. Your cohorts, right? Your the people who are rooting for you, who are not only just merely supporting you, but sort of holding you up as well. And I think as artists, we need that space. We need that level of um, commitment, right, to be able to give. And that's on one hand, and on the other hand, this is a profession like anything else, right? So my husband goes, he's a software person. Today he has a bunch of meetings. I have this meeting, right? So it's sort of who we are as human beings outside of the dance milieu is still human beings. And if we are able to bring that human quality to the dance as well, that transition that and be ourselves, so sort of life and dance kind of go on this journey together. I know those are esoteric terms, but practically speaking, I think we need to learn to compartmentalize. We need to understand what the space is for this and what the space is for that is, and keep in mind that both are equally important. There is no this is better, this is more important, or that is more important, right? Because for me, this relationship I have with my daughters is precious. It's so precious. And I could not do that if I didn't give it that time and that energy and that effort that it required. It's a two-way street, and it's not something that they just grow up and they love you. No. So it's that it takes so much from you. And just like dance is like this sister of mine who also takes so much from me. And so I have to learn to negotiate both those spaces. It's difficult. It's really difficult. It's not easy on a daily basis. Sometimes motivation is difficult. Sometimes you want to just go away and only dance. Sometimes you want to only be with. So it tears you apart many times. So it's difficult. I will not lie. But you do it because you don't know how else to survive. You don't know what else. I don't know what I would do if I were not dancing, right? So I like I said before already, I would go crazy. So in order to do this better, I need to dance, and in order to dance better, I need to also have this nexus, this beautiful family that is important to me, and circle of friends and all of that.
So, and Akila, I feel the best way to deal with it is not to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Because like Vidya said, there are a lot of people who do have dual careers and, are mothers and have much, 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 much more taxing jobs,
Yeah.
And so this is like a job, and there is
Yeah.
no point romanticizing it and saying, oh my God, I've sacrificed my dance for my parenthood, or oh my God, I've sacrificed my parenthood to be a dancer. Because
Right.
this word sacrifice doesn't make any sense, because it's a choice you made.
Right.
It's a choice I consciously made to go for my performance and not be there for my child's parent teacher meeting. Or it was a decision that I made, that I will not go for that performance so that I can be with my child when she gives her board
Yeah.
exams. So it's
Right.
a conscious decision I make. So it's not to romanticize it too much and make a big deal out of it. When I learned this, I was actually thinking that, oh my God, I'm a big ace in balancing dance and wifehood, motherhood, dancehood, and all of that is happening, till I did a production called Swashakti with my sister. Her name is Meera Khanna, and she's a author and a social activist. So we both did this work called Swashakti, where we speak about the woman finding her strength within herself, finding the Durga, the Saraswati, and the Lakshmi within her, and nobody is going to give it to her. She has to find it herself through a series of compositions and prose in Hindi,
Mm.
because we were premiering it for 500 women panchayati heads, right? And from states like Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh. Okay. And I am thinking that I am this empowered woman, and I come and I stand in front of 500 women who are the panchayati heads in their village. I mean, women
How beautiful is
empowerment
Yeah.
starts from the grassroots level, right?
Bumps.
Many of them were in Gungat. They had to lift their
Wow.
Gungat like this to watch me dance. Okay. And we did this presentation, and that's when I felt that, it is messages that these need to be taken to the grassroots levels, because it was 500 panchayati women, but there were a lot of other panchayati, their members, male members, they were also there. Okay, but the whole conference was for these women.
Right.
And we as dancers, it is our responsibility. Dance is not just in fancy festivals abroad and metropolitan city theater, state of the art stages. It is this. This is what we need to. We also need to include in
Yeah.
our system.
Yeah.
And then after the performance, these women panchayati heads started talking about what all they do. They have to collect water for their house. They have to cook for their house, and then they have to, make their children study, and then they have to get ready for the panchayati meeting under the banyan tree in the evening. And then before that, they have to negotiate a lot of mudslinging that is happening. I mean, that was balance. That was, handling different careers, and negotiating different things in their lives. That's when I realized that it's what big deal am I making of what I am doing. It's absolutely inconsequential when you look at these women, when you look what they're going through and what they've achieved and how they empower themselves.
Yeah.
So that's this was a big learning experience for me.
No, I mean, this also brings me to my last and final question, which was really about how women actually have the amazing ability to actually either elevate women, uplift them, or actually bring them down. And unfortunately, more and more women have that capacity to bring other women down. And I think that's the worst thing that any woman can do, especially in the times that we are in currently. I want to ask you both finally about have you both done stuff together? I know that Vidya unfurled this gem from her archives that we're going to play at the end of this, but I want you to talk just quickly about how dancers, especially the community of dance, how women artists need to support other women artists, and why you think quickly that it's really crucial.
I always
That
say, I always say the way forward is together.
Yeah.
absolutely.
There is no other way. The way forward is together.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely important to share, to share, to be there for each other, because that is what will stay at the end of the day. I think that's very, very
No,
Yeah,
for
essential.
and I
sure.
think the sense of there is space for everybody. It's not
Yeah,
nobody is taking away space from anybody else just because they're doing something, right? So
yep,
space is available. The art is going to live beyond us, and it's just going to go on and on and on. We're just here.
absolutely.
We've hopped on to this one part of the journey. That's all. So I think we should stop taking ourselves too seriously, first of all,
Yep,
and second, I
Well,
think understanding that judgment this is a very problematic word, that has crept up is in the field, and it has always been there. Actually, it's not just happened now. But this, why do we judge so much, right? Why, like I said before, also, each artist is an amalgam of what they've experienced so far and what they've learned so far, and they are in a certain space. You can either choose to watch them or not watch them. That is completely your prerogative. It's a democracy. But why judge? Why, so if we can do away with judgment, and if we can find, this idea of that just because I praise you, I don't become any less. We have to understand that. And the other thing I feel is missing also in this field of arts is peer review. Peer review. I think the younger generation is now has caught on to that, and they're doing it beautifully. I love some of the work. I mean, some of these brilliant ideas that are coming from young dancers today boggles my mind. But beyond that, it's also how they support each other, how they can watch each other and give feedback and give constructive feedback, right? I feel in our generation, Rama, I'm not sure that we have that, space. We have not created that space. That is collectively all of us, right? It's either mentor or teacher, or if you ask somebody, it feels like they, without using all those words of mentorship or teacher or any of that, right? Peer review. Writers have this all the time. Akila, writers, when they write books, they sit down and read each other's work and give feedback, right? So why are dancers not able to do that?
Because it's never too late, Vidya. It's never too late,
yeah,
Vidya.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, that's what
yes,
I'm saying.
Let's do it. Yes.
Let's do it. So yeah, so can we take ourselves a little less seriously is all I'm asking.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. At this point, I'm just going to ask, Ramaji, do you just want to set the context for the video that will play, or Vidya, one of you?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Sorry, I forgot about that in all this. So I run an organization called Kalavedika here in the Bay Area, which is, the idea is to bridge the gap between performer and audience, right? We're always looking at performances and not really how much are we understanding. But as part of this, it was actually the very first session that we had. It was an outreach event where I invited Rama to have a conversation through dance. And so many times I have watched her do this Mohamaginin Varnam and enjoyed it thoroughly. And at least 2 or 3 of the times that I did it, she has been in the audience and also told me that she enjoyed it, right? So we said, okay. So I said, why don't we explore this Varnam together, right? We just have a conversation through the Varnam. And what we did was we danced, we talked about our ideation process. And each of our ideas were completely different. How we approached that Varnam was different. And so we talked about that. We showcased it, we performed it. So it was just this, and we hardly had any practice also. We decided to let it, flow organically. And we said, okay, that morning we'll just meet for a bit and see what happens. And then we went straight on, and it was the most, it was so enjoyable because we were not getting in each other's way, first of all. And we were also respecting what the other was there to give, right? And that it did not reduce us in any way, either of us in any way.
And actually that got us closer, Akila.
Yeah.
The camaraderie that we had, during that work, that got us closer. And over the years, that relationship just strengthened.
And so through dance you find these beautiful
yes
clips, right? So I just yesterday when you were asking about clips, I just thought, oh my goodness, why not? And I remembered that it's been a few years and the quality is not great, and the space itself, we had rains that day, so we had to move it indoors and all that. But I hope people will.
Yeah, and I hope the video plays. But
that's another issue. That's
can we have the video, please?
இன்னும் யோஜனை ஏனடி மறிபயங்குதே நடி மாதே காது காயினும் பயமா இது ரகசியமாயுதமாதே இன்னும் யோஜனை ஏனடி மறிபயங்குதே நடி மாதே காது காயினும் பயமா இது ரகசியமாயுதமாதே இன்னும் யோஜனை ஏனடி மறிபயங்குதே நடி மாதே யாருக்காகிலும் பயமா இன்னும் யோஜனை ஏனடி மாதே மாதே மாதே
Wow. What a fantastic conversation that was, impromptu too. The best
Yeah, it
kind.
was so
you know?
much fun.
It was so much fun. And I must say, the conversation has been so much fun too. And I literally want to tell you that my Navratri is made like talking to two goddesses who just spoke their hearts out, and really artists who really inspire, artists who also have like, like are constantly like balancing, doing the balancing act, negotiating so many things, being honest, strong, beautiful, all of that, resilient, everything. So thank you so much, Ramaji. Thank you so much, Vidya. I had so much fun like talking to both of you. And I'm sure
Thank
there's
you.
so many comments, people telling us that
Thank
they
you.
enjoyed
Akila,
this.
thank you so much for doing this. And these, we missed this in our times, we missed this. And I think these conversations must be so good for youngsters, it's not just a learning experience, it's fun for them to listen to us. And this is something we missed. And thank you, Akila, for doing this. Not just today, so many conversations you've curated, and the whole Navaratri series she's curated them so beautifully. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Yeah.
And all those words that you just spoke of, resilience and balance and all of those, you embody every single one of them.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
Hopefully we get to celebrate another New Year's together, or at least like meet and like have a party and to good times. Thank you so much for being women who really inspire. Like we all need like, like I remember when I was going through a bad patch about 4-5 months ago, Ramaji talked to me and she told me about, she literally gave me this, sometimes you need women to show you the mirror and say, stop being silly, grow up. Like when she told me this panchayat story, that's what struck me, because sometimes we take ourselves a little too seriously and the work that we do a bit too seriously, and it really does not, because life has like so much more in store. We just got to do what we do with like love and passion and have fun along the way and not forget that.
It goes on. It goes
on. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Suprita, for helping with the tech. Thank you to everybody who joined in and left some beautiful comments. Have a good day, Vidya, and have a good night, Ramaji.
Thank you. You too, Akila.
A pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Rama. Bye.
Bye, Vidya.